Welcome to Lesson 3 in Unit 15, Guardians of the Garden. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, how does frost form? In this lesson, students carry out an investigation that demonstrates water changing phases in various ways. They will observe water evaporating, condensing, melting, and freezing. Students figure out water changes phase between solid, liquid, and gas when temperature changes, and the phases can change back and forth. They make connections to the storyline by developing an understanding that water in the air, soil, and inside plants will change phase depending on the temperature around them. Frost occurs when water vapor in the air condenses and freezes. There are several opportunities for ELA and math cross-curricular connections throughout the lesson. You can look for specific standard connections in the Unit 15 Teacher Guide. This lesson will take approximately 3 days to complete. For the Engage portion, you'll introduce the anchoring problem for sections 2 and 3. Sometimes frost occurs while food plants are growing. You'll ask students what they learned in the last lessons about what plants need to grow, and if they think plants growing in certain climate conditions could still have trouble growing. You'll show a frost advisory weather report and have students turn and talk about their observations. You'll invite students to ask questions, then add them to the driving question board. You'll ask students what their observations make them wonder when you revisit the driving question board. Add new questions and highlight any other questions connected to the learning goals of this lesson by calling attention to questions and noticings about frost, how frost forms, what frost does to plants, and how to protect plants from frost. To begin the Explore portion, you'll ask students questions to pre-assess their knowledge of the phases of water. During the discussion, you can post and discuss the solid and liquid vocabulary cards. You'll then set up the How Frost Forms investigation. There is a link to a tutorial for this investigation in the Teacher Guide. You'll have students record temperatures and their observations in the table on the How Frost Forms student journal page. You'll carry out the investigation using the instructions in the Teacher Guide. Students should try to fill in the cause and effect part of the diagram. They will fill in the mechanism section after the Explain discussion. For the Explain portion of the lesson, you'll bring the class together and lead a discussion about the students' observations from the investigation. Use the provided questions to guide your discussion around the question, how does frost form? The goal of this class discussion is to analyze student observations and explain how water changes phases back and forth as temperature changes. During the discussion, you will begin to fill out the Lesson 3 summary chart. You'll fill out rows 1 and 2 during the Explain discussion and complete the chart during the Elaborate. You'll then read A Drop Around the World as a class. Use the Read Aloud guide to help students synthesize ideas about water phase changes and frost. You'll then go back to the How Frost Forms student journal page and discuss the cause and effect relationships in the investigations. Students can revise their journal observations. For the Elaborate portion, you'll show students the video, Where Does Frost Come From? As a review of the new terms and how frost forms, you'll ask questions to connect the concepts back to the investigation and fill in the third row of the summary chart. By the end of the discussion, students should understand that plants in Missouri are at risk of experiencing frost due to the changes in temperature from day to night during certain seasons. For the Evaluate portion, you'll have students do the How Water Changes Quick Check student journal page. To support student sense-making across the unit, orient them back to the driving question board. Ask, what did we learn about how frost forms? And what new questions do you have? By the end of this lesson, students will have carried out an investigation to observe and collect evidence on the effect of temperature on water phase changes. In Lesson 4, students will investigate how frost affects plants. For more information about this unit, visit mysidepartners.com.